My name is Michael, I am 32 years of age, and my wife's name is Lily, she is 30 years of age. We met in college and dated until we married 4 years ago. Our relationship was previously characterized by a high level of mutual compatibility and positive interactions. However, recent events have led to a significant deterioration in our relationship. Lily and I met in college, and from the moment I first laid eyes on her, I recognized her as a highly compatible partner. Our relationship was characterized by a strong sense of connection and understanding, including a shared interest in various activities and a similar sense of humor. Lily was not only physically attractive but also possessed a kind, benevolent, and jovial disposition. She imbued every moment we spent together with a sense of profound gratitude. We dated throughout college, subsequently graduated, and then married a few years later. Fast forwarding to the present, we have a wonderful son whom I will refer to as Sean for reasons of privacy. He is 3 years old and represents the epitome of joy in my life. I have always been a family-oriented individual, striving to provide for my loved ones. Lily elected to become a stay-at-home mother, a decision I fully respect. Lily chose to be a stay-at-home mother because she wanted to be present for every moment of Sean's early life. Additionally, she did not favor daycare. I fully respected her decision, as I recognize the importance of family. As the sole provider, I am responsible for paying all bills and ensuring that our small family has everything it needs. However, my role extends beyond financial responsibility. I am also heavily involved in household chores, including cooking, cleaning, and caring for Sean. I value every moment with him and frequently find myself engaging in playful activities. I engage in various activities with him, including playing games, reading stories, or simply snuggling up on the couch. I have always believed in maintaining the romantic aspect of our relationship. I make an effort to compliment Lily, arrange date nights, and surprise her with small acts of love. However, something changed after Sean's birth. The spark that was present in our love life has just died out. Initially, I understood that she had just given birth and that she and the baby required constant care and attention. I made it a point to be there for her throughout her recovery, pregnancy, and the anticipation of her needs. At all times, I was there to support Lily through her pregnancy and the subsequent arrival of Sean. However, as time passed, I began to observe clear signs that Lily was pulling away. This was not simply a result of the exhaustion that comes with caring for a newborn while I was occupied with tending to Sean and striving to be the best possible father. Lily seemed distant and preoccupied with her own thoughts. Her mood swings intensified, prompting me to consider the possibility of postpartum depression. I recognized that this could be a potential issue. It was challenging for her, and I wanted to assist her in navigating this period, so I enrolled in therapy, viewing it as a promising initial step. However, my efforts seemed futile when Lily refused to attend her therapy sessions on the first day. I drove her to the appointment, but Sean required constant attention, so I was unable to stay with her. To my surprise, she never showed up for her session. Instead, she decided to wander aimlessly, which ultimately led her home. I needed to track her location, but she was evasive in providing a straightforward answer. Despite undergoing a psychiatric evaluation, no indications of a serious mental illness were identified. It was challenging to observe her struggles, but I provided support when she was receptive and otherwise avoided my assistance. Lily exhibited symptoms of postpartum depression. While her physical condition improved, her mental state remained impaired, preventing her from engaging in activities that required energy. I assumed additional responsibilities at home, including caring for Sean and maintaining household operations, while Lily appeared content to remain inactive. It was distressing to witness her lack of engagement. She had previously been highly evolved and lively, but now she was like a shadow of herself. I attempted to discuss the possibility of seeking therapeutic assistance with her, but she consistently rejected the idea. She made it clear that she was not interested in any kind of intervention. My primary objective was to see Lily happy and vibrant again. Witnessing her struggle with postpartum depression was distressing and frustrating. I was determined to do whatever it took to lift her spirits. One of my suggestions was I suggested that she consider returning to work, even if it meant taking on a low-paying job, in order to rekindle her sense of purpose. I hoped that it would be a positive change, something to focus on outside of our family life, and perhaps even an opportunity for her to reconnect with her passions. However, Lily was adamant about her refusal, viewing it as unnecessary pressure and preferring to stay at home despite the negative impact on her mental health. I found this difficult to accept. I respected her decision, even though I believed she was not yet prepared to resume her previous activities. I had hoped she would reconsider, as I felt she might regain at least some of her former self-confidence. However, I noticed a change in her behavior. When she was with her friends, she was outgoing, talkative, and full of energy. However, as soon as she returned home, she became distant and she became unresponsive, and it felt as if there was a barrier between us that I was unable to overcome. I attempted to initiate a conversation about the issue, hoping to gain insight into her perspective. However, each time I broached the topic, she became defensive and angry. It was frustrating because I wanted us to be open and honest with one another, but she consistently shut me out. It was challenging to observe her exhibiting such a contrasting demeanor outside of our home while remaining closed off and distant when we were together. I was compelled to inquire as to what had transpired and why she was unable to maintain the same demeanor with me as she did with her friends. This pattern persisted for an extended period, becoming the new normal. I found myself adapting to the growing distance and emotional numbness between us. I employed a multitude of strategies to bridge the gap and comprehend Lily's behavior. However, none of these approaches proved effective. It felt as if I were continuously striking my head against a wall with no resolution in sight. The distance between us seemed to have no end in sight. However, leaving was not an option, given that my son was still so young. Due to Sean's age, I anticipated that the courts would favor Lily in terms of custody. I was unwilling to accept the possibility of being separated from my son, and thus remained in the relationship, hoping for a change for the better. Despite everything, I still held a fondness for Lily. I wanted her to seek help to reclaim the vibrant woman I had fallen in love with. However, it appeared that she had become stuck in a certain pattern. This cycle of distance and temporary closeness, which has persisted for at least a year, if not two, has become a pattern. Lily has a tendency to become distant and almost unreachable, which prompts me to withdraw my affection. I have grown weary of the constant push and pull. She will suddenly become more attentive and affectionate, as if she can sense my distance, but it is always short-lived. There are periods when she is fine, but then, once she realizes that I am back on board, she retreats into her shell, leaving me. I was perplexed and frustrated until I observed the initial indication that prompted concern. She spent a considerable amount of time on her mobile phone. I subsequently learned that this is often cited as a primary indicator when individuals suspect their partner is engaging in infidelity, whether emotional or physical. The constant scrolling, the distant gaze, and the prolonged attention to the screen contribute to a growing unease. However, at the time, my thoughts did not immediately turn to infidelity. Lily had been distant from me for an extended period, which was unfortunate. It seemed to be a new normal for us, so when I noticed her using her phone more than usual and being particularly discreet about it, I began to have concerns. However, I dismissed these concerns because I assumed they were related to her withdrawal from our relationship. I attempted to reassure myself that my uneasy feelings were simply due to stress or being preoccupied with something else, but despite my efforts, I remained uncertain. A sense of foreboding descended upon us, casting a shadow over our relationship. I began to question the foundations of our shared life. Lily was not the type to exhibit excessive caution or secrecy regarding her phone. In reality, she was the polar opposite. She would leave her phone unattended, fail to recall where she had placed it, and require me to retrieve it or call to locate it. This was merely one of her idiosyncrasies, which I found endearing. It had become a running joke between us, her carelessness with the phone. However, she then began to exhibit behaviors that indicated a sudden change in her attitude towards her phone. She began to check her phone frequently, as if she were awaiting an urgent message, and she began to hide her phone from me, as if it were a highly confidential document. These behaviors made me feel that she was concealing something from me, and this feeling was not a positive one. She then took further steps to prevent me from seeing her phone or her messages. These included refusing to charge her phone in the same room as me, keeping her phone close to her at all times, and avoiding opening her phone in my presence. At this point, it seemed as though she was protecting it with her life, which prompted me to consider the implications of this behavior. Why was she putting up a wall between us? I was unable to discern the reason behind her secrecy, particularly given that she had never exhibited such behavior previously. It felt like a breach of trust, a barrier between us that I was unable to overcome, despite my best efforts. The next stage of my suspicions arose when I observed Lily spending an unusual amount of time. It should be noted that a significant change had already occurred in our lives. As previously stated, Lily had become extremely tired and lazy, avoiding all household chores and leaving me to assume responsibility for them. This led to me reducing my work hours and transitioning to remote work from home, which allowed me to balance taking care of Sean and managing household chores without letting things pile up. However, this did not mean that I worked entirely remotely. I still went to the office, but I did roughly 70% of my work from home. I was required to be at my place of work for approximately 30% of my working hours. Consequently, I was able to observe Lily's frequent absences from the house. Her justifications for leaving home became increasingly implausible. While she had previously socialized with friends on occasion, she was now constantly on the move, and her explanations for doing so lacked coherence. One particularly concerning development was her newly apparent desire to drive herself. Previously, she would often rely on her friends to collect her for a night out, particularly given that she did not drink alcohol. However, she was now taking the wheel with increasing frequency, which struck me as unusual. I did not think much of it at the time, but I later checked her location and found that she was often in unfamiliar places, such as restaurants and clubs. This led me to suspect that she was spending more time with her friends than I had realized. Lily was a frequent drinker, but her recent tendency to operate a motor vehicle independently was peculiar. I initially dismissed this as mere coincidence, rationalizing that her motivation to drive herself could simply be a personal choice. However, upon monitoring her movements through her location tracking feature, I observed that she frequented a variety of locations, including restaurants and nightclubs. This led me to question whether she was spending more time with her friends, despite the unusual circumstances. What further complicated matters was that she never disabled her location tracking feature. Location sharing made it appear as if she had nothing to hide. However, every time I tried to express my concerns, Lily became defensive and turned it around on me. She accused me of being the one who wanted her to become more social, and now she was. I started questioning her every move, which was frustrating and perplexing. One thing that really piqued my interest was how much money Lily was spending. It was far exceeding her usual spending habits. Whenever I asked her about it, she gave the same excuse, stating that she had decided to either pay for everyone's drinks or treat them to dinner. This explanation did not seem to align with her friends' typical spending habits. They were accustomed to splitting the bill evenly or paying for their own drinks to avoid confusion or conflict. Therefore, her sudden desire to foot the bill for everyone raised some concerns. I did not want to be perceived as a paranoid husband who was constantly questioning her actions. Therefore, I simply asked her to be mindful of her spending. However, this did not fully assuage my suspicions. A fortuitous encounter at the grocery store ultimately revealed the truth. Lily typically dislikes grocery shopping, so I usually do it. On this occasion, I encountered one of Lily's closest friends, someone who had always been a part of their social circle. We exchanged pleasantries and spoke briefly. During this conversation, she mentioned something that raised a concern. She hadn't seen Lily for a while, which was unusual because whenever Lily went out, she always mentioned that I inquired about her whereabouts, noting that she was typically seen with her friends. When I asked about her recent activities, she seemed perplexed and confirmed that she had not been socializing with them recently. I did not pursue the matter further, as I was reluctant to arouse suspicion. However, the incident lingered in my mind. When I informed Lily about the encounter, she seemed surprised. It was as if she had not anticipated me running into her friend. She inquired about the nature of our conversation, but I informed Lily that we had merely exchanged pleasantries. Consequently, I began monitoring her location with greater frequency, as I had not done previously, given the seemingly innocuous nature of her activities, which included dining at restaurants and clubs, as well as visiting various locations at random. However, I was now paying close attention to her movements, attempting to discern patterns and make sense of the situation. Eventually, everything came together, and I had to acknowledge that my curiosity had reached a breaking point. While I did not want to be perceived as an overly suspicious individual, I could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. Lily's mention of going out to meet her friends provided me with an opportunity to act. I maintained composure and informed her that I would be at home working. I also informed her that I had already arranged for my sister to come over and assist Sean or take him to the park. My sister arrived, and I waited for Lily to leave the house before initiating my plan of action. I informed my sister that I needed to leave for a short while to quickly ascertain Lily's location and proceeded to the restaurant where she was. Upon entering the restaurant, I immediately observed Lily in the company of a male companion. They were engaged in a meal, yet the interaction was not merely a casual reunion as she had asserted. The individuals in question were not the acquaintances she had purported to be spending time with. Instead, they exhibited a degree of intimacy and affection that was striking. I proceeded to identify a location from which I could observe their interaction without being noticed. I ordered a beverage that would not draw attention and simply observed their behavior. It became evident that their relationship extended beyond mere friendship. My emotional state was significantly affected by this observation. As I observed her feeding him, I was overcome with a sense of disbelief and dismay. I was on the verge of tears, but what truly evoked a strong emotional response was when they began conversing, and I was unable to comprehend their words. I witnessed her rise from her seat and proceed to the restroom, with him following closely behind. It was evident, even without the aid of a crystal ball or fortune teller, that something untoward had transpired in that restroom. It was clear that my wife had been engaged in an illicit affair with the man who was with her. I invested a great deal of emotional and physical energy into our marriage, striving to make it work. Throughout the period in which my wife was engaged in an extramarital relationship, she exhibited erratic and irrational behavior. I was initially shocked, then hurt, then enraged. Part of me wanted to confront her, but I managed to control my emotions. I paid the bill and proceeded to the restroom. I did not even have to look inside to determine which stall they were in. The sounds emanating from there were terrible, but it was evident which stall they were in. I firmly pounded on the stall door, and they fell silent. My wife's voice, hesitantly announcing that the stall was occupied, was not met with an enthusiastic response. However, I was compelled to persist. I demanded that she face me, but there was simply quiet on her end. It was as if she recognized my voice but was unable to muster the courage to respond. After some awkward silence, the man in the stall inquired about my identity. I informed him, in a straightforward manner, that I was with my wife. The man was visibly taken aback and apologized. He revealed that my wife had led him to assume she was divorced and seeking something casual. We engaged in a rather peculiar conversation in the confined restroom while my wife remained hidden in the cubicle, too embarrassed or shocked to come out. I was infuriated, as was the man she was with. He felt manipulated in the same way that I did. Meanwhile, my wife remained in the cubicle, likely too embarrassed or stunned to confront what was going on. I decided to go after her. Upon realizing that I was wasting time waiting for her to emerge from the restroom, I informed her that I would be at home and that she needed to retrieve her belongings. This prompted her to pursue me and beg, but I was not inclined to engage in any further discussion. I considered stealing my car keys at that moment, but I was driving alone and had paid for all of our vehicles back home. My sister noticed the growing storm within me and realized that something was wrong. I informed her of the situation in its entirety. I was astonished and indignant on my behalf, cognizant of the arduous efforts I had invested in our family. We concurred that it was imperative to disclose the circumstances. My wife's conduct merited acknowledgement. I requested my sister's assistance in packing her belongings, requesting that she refrain from entering our residence. My sister acquiesced, and I proceeded to contact my in-laws, my own family, and our acquaintances to inform them of the developments. I did not await their feedback. I did not seek advice or counsel. My sole objective was to ensure that everyone was aware of the circumstances surrounding my wife's infidelity. Once I had contacted as many individuals as possible, I placed my phone on Do Not Disturb mode and assisted my sister in packing the remaining belongings. We swiftly gathered them, hurled them out onto the porch, and locked the door. Less than 5 minutes later, my wife entered the residence, tears streaming down her cheeks, pleading for forgiveness. Unfortunately, it was too late. She had betrayed me in the most egregious manner, and I was forced to take action. I went to retrieve the car keys from my wife, and the situation quickly escalated. She initially resisted and attempted to prevent me from taking the keys. I maintained my composure and informed her that I would contact the authorities if necessary. Eventually, she relented and handed over the keys. I then informed her that there was no possibility of reconciliation and that I wanted her to leave. This news enraged her, and she began hurling insults and blame at me. She accused me of being vengeful for not I chose to wait even a day before disclosing her activities to the group. Instead of responding to her accusations, I ignored her as she screamed outside for hours. I was surprised that my neighbors did not file a noise complaint. My sister was unable to leave because we were afraid that my wife would attack me, so she spent the night with me, despite the circumstances. I was grateful for the company. Of course, as a child, he does not fully comprehend the situation. I do not want to burden Sean. Despite being aware of his mother's infidelity, I am reluctant to grant her custody. Consequently, I have sought to share my experience, express my emotions, and seek solace, as well as to obtain advice from others. I have striven to provide for my family, support them through challenging times, and be a devoted spouse and reliable provider. However, I have been met with betrayal, which has caused me significant distress. She sought something different, which caused me pain. It is challenging to accept this reality. I have since received a great deal of positive feedback in response to my story. I did not anticipate such a strong response from people I do not know on the internet. I have been trying to read and respond to all of the comments and direct messages, but there have been a great many of them. I ask for your patience if I have not yet gotten to yours. Your support means more to me than I can convey. I will make every effort to read and respond to them all. I will endeavor to read each and every remark and direct message. It has been approximately a week since I shared my narrative, so I should have updated sooner. I offer my sincere apologies for the delay, but I will provide an update. When I awoke the morning after I posted, I discovered that my wife had already departed. She had taken her belongings with her, which was a surprising turn of events. She had paid for an Uber and booked a hotel room, as I discovered after checking our joint account. I promptly closed the joint account to avoid any further use of our funds. This is something I should have done so at an earlier juncture. I have also received communications from numerous individuals, including her mother. Her mother expressed profound regret and bewilderment at her daughter's actions. She inquired if I could forgive her daughter, but I made it clear that I could not accept such betrayal. My mother and siblings also expressed concern about me, and I assured them that I was coping. Interestingly, none of her friends or family members were willing to let her stay with them, so she ended up at a hotel. Her closest friends declined to take her in, which I found surprising. I also observed that she has not ceased providing her whereabouts to me, indicating that she is still at the hotel. My sister, who had previously returned home, returned to remain with me for support. It is beneficial to have her around during this challenging period. I also received a missed call from one of her acquaintances whom I encountered in the grocery store. I have not yet called her back, but I will provide an update once I do or if anything changes. It is worth noting that I have also received several remarks that I feel compelled to address. Primarily, I have observed a multitude of ill-advised comments on this matter. I acknowledge that I erred by placing unwavering trust in her account and vow to avoid such missteps in the future. This lesson has been challenging to learn, yet it has left an indelible mark on my memory. For those who have recommended seeking legal counsel, I assure you that I am currently consulting with legal professionals. I will not navigate this situation without the guidance of experts on matters pertaining to comments. Some have speculated that my wife may be bipolar, although I do not believe this to be the case. I am no longer preoccupied with this issue. It is something she must address independently, as I am no longer concerned about it. Additionally, there have been comments about my perceived complacency, particularly regarding her transition to a stay-at-home mother. I understand the perspective behind these remarks, and in retrospect, there were indeed warning signs. However, I had not anticipated that events would unfold in this manner. I accept full responsibility for the situation. I am grateful for all the input I have received, including the harsh criticism. It has helped me to view things from a new perspective and to make more informed decisions in the future. I would like to thank everyone who has offered help and guidance during this challenging period. It has been a difficult time, but knowing that people care means a great deal to me. I have updated my Reddit account. It has been a while, but life has been a roller coaster. I am still coping. Once the initial upheaval had subsided, my former spouse proceeded to engage in a series of emotionally charged interactions. She contacted me via telephone and proceeded to vocalize her distress in a highly agitated manner. Her discourse was characterized by a relentless focus on her own victimization, while simultaneously disregarding her own actions and the extent to which she had contributed to the deterioration of the relationship. I permitted her to express her feelings, largely to gain insight into her emotional state and the factors that might have contributed to our marital breakdown. However, her messages soon shifted towards threats, insults, and attempts at reconciliation. I chose not to respond, as I deemed it unnecessary. I have no desire to interact with individuals exhibiting erratic behavior. Instead, I retained screenshots for my attorney. When she was served with the divorce papers, the court was likely to view her behavior unfavorably. She contacted me, expressing outrage and ranting about my decision to proceed with the divorce. She seemed to believe that I was obliged to remain in a toxic situation. I found her behavior amusing. After years of marriage to a manipulative individual, I was finally free to pursue a more fulfilling relationship. I had assumed that we could work it out and that I would regret my decision to leave once I was finally free. However, I was mistaken. While my family and friends have checked in, they have done so less frequently than before. This is a positive development, as it allows me to focus on my recovery without the constant pressure of their inquiries. They have discussed with me the possibility of requesting assistance if necessary, and I am grateful for their support. My sister, in particular, has been a constant source of strength. She is no longer living with me permanently, but she frequently stops by when she can. I require a period of respite or a source of emotional support. It is beneficial to have the assistance of others at this time. I have observed a recurring question in my direct messages and comments. Everyone is inquiring about her extramarital partner. I must admit that I am unaware of any information regarding this individual. I had only one encounter with him, which occurred when I confronted her in a restaurant. It was the only time I have seen him, and I do not intend to seek further contact. It is possible that he has learned of her proclivity for deceit. Furthermore, the assertion that she was unmarried despite her recent divorce is also erroneous. It is therefore ill-advised to inquire about him. He is as enigmatic to me as he is to you all. I would prefer that he remain a mystery. Life is progressing at a gradual but consistent pace. I am concentrating on rebuilding my relationship with Sean and, indeed, on myself. It is a journey, but I am taking it one step at a time. I am grateful for your support and understanding. You are all admirable. I have read your messages and I appreciate them. It has been a challenging journey, and I am finally at the conclusion of this chapter in my life. I intended to post sooner, but unexpected circumstances led to delays. I am relieved to have reached this point and to have this chapter behind me. I am not accustomed to updating Reddit on a regular basis, so this feels like a significant change. On a positive note, my child is now under my custody as a result of the legal proceedings. This is a welcome outcome, particularly given the circumstances. My ex-wife has received alimony as a form of compensation for her time as a stay-at-home parent. As a stay-at-home mother, I was grateful that our state's laws took adultery into consideration. I was displeased that she received anything at all, but it was not substantial enough to drastically alter her life. On a positive note, I was able to keep everything else in the house, including valuables. It was reassuring to have that stability for Sean and myself throughout the legal process. My ex-wife never inquired about Sean, which I found to be a positive sign. My lawyer also emphasized this fact. In court, she was preoccupied with asking me to take her back and shouting abuses at me after the judge delivered the verdict. My ex-wife appeared to realize the gravity of her loss. She caught me outside the courthouse crying and pleading for a chance to speak. I listened to her momentarily, but I knew, deep down, that words would not change anything. Furthermore, there was a good chance her emotions were all phony and she was just attempting to mislead me. I hurriedly walked out. I was reluctant to allow her emotional display to become a spectacle, given our ongoing co-parenting responsibilities. I was unable to simply block and cut her off. I needed to remain connected for Sean's sake. Conversely, these conversations served to reinforce the necessity of the divorce and provide insight into her deteriorating circumstances. I have been focused on myself and Sean, and my family and friends have been a source of support. They ensure that I never feel isolated. The support I have received has been invaluable, particularly in light of the challenges I have faced. Recently, however, circumstances have become relatively calm. This is a testament to the strength I have found within myself and the remarkable support system that surrounds me. I am grateful to everyone here for their love, understanding, and guidance. You have been a great source of support. Before I close this account and return to my main one, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone here. I will now share the next story. My partner and I work for the same company in the marketing department. My wife's place of employment is an agency that facilitates client interactions. I am uncertain about the specifics of her role, other than that it involves maintaining a friendly rapport with them. I am Mark, and I oversee the operations of our team. Our quality of life has been satisfactory. We have secured gainful employment, transformed our property into a comfortable residence, and had 2 exceptional children, Emma, aged 13, and Daniel, aged 11. We reside in close proximity to our extended family, and we are both in our 40s, which allows us to maintain robust relationships despite our physical differences. My wife is of above-average height and possesses a certain degree of physical attractiveness. She has long blonde hair and blue eyes, which she attributes to her Swedish ancestry, giving her a Scandinavian appearance. She is slim, energetic, and always on the go. I am a similar height with sandy-colored hair, and I enjoy hobbies like bicycling and jogging, which keep me in good shape but not unduly muscular. To my surprise, I was invited to spend an extended week on a private island owned by one of our company's clients. Jack Edwards, our CEO, stated that he, his wife Margaret, numerous board members, and their respective spouses will be in attendance as the primary point of contact with the client. My wife was invited with the understanding that my role would be to study financial facts. However, as the adage goes, one should never look a gift horse in the mouth. Jack noted that this client was extremely wealthy and may potentially become our largest account. We were scheduled to leave early Friday and return Monday on a private charter, with all expenses covered on the drive home. I discussed this with my wife, who had been coordinating with this customer for a considerable length of time. I was anticipating the forthcoming free weekend. However, upon further investigation, I discovered that she was not as knowledgeable as I had assumed. Consequently, I inquired about the client himself. She introduced him as William Fellows, a confident man in his mid-40s who was the heir to his family's fortune. She described him as domineering and aloof. I considered him to be arrogant, but I refrained from expressing my opinion. 2 weeks later, we boarded a private plane destined for what appeared to be a luxurious destination. The island, owned by William, had no specific expectations regarding its appearance. However, it appeared spacious and opulent, almost like a high-end resort. As we descended, everyone, including Lucy, was filled with excitement. We were led to our rooms and later had lunch with our host, overlooking the bay. Despite initial concerns, William seemed quite friendly. Lucy even said he wasn't as awful as she had expected. He resembled George Clooney and greeted us pleasantly, urging us to feel at ease during our encounters with the other 3 couples. From our agency, we met an attractive brunette named Charlotte, who appeared to be William's weekend guest. Aside from the service personnel, the only person who was not presented was what appeared to be a security guard, who remained discreetly in the background. This made me wonder what kind of risks William faced that required protection, even on a remote island. William and Lucy greeted each other like old friends, and she, like everyone else, inclined to obey his instructions. Most likely due to his considerable generosity and significance as a client, we spent the afternoon spent snorkeling, kayaking, and lounging in the bay, where refreshments were easily available. In the evening, the group dined together. The atmosphere was friendly and relaxed, encouraging conversations in small groups. Charlotte approached us, introduced herself as pleasant, and described her childhood in England. She gave the impression of coming from a wealthy family but remained down-to-earth and approachable. I wondered if she was a model or did not need to work. To my surprise, she was genuinely playful with me, even in front of others. I was able to avoid Lucy, attributing it to her overly outgoing nature, full-time care, no children, time to rest, and a scenic setting. The latter provided the perfect atmosphere for a romantic evening. Lucy was very affectionate, and her passion was tremendous. She showed her love for me several times. It was an absolutely great night. Perhaps the concept of a love island isn't so horrible after all. I hope we have another wonderful morning, but Lucy hurriedly prepared for breakfast. I eventually got out of bed and joined her. While she conversed with Jack and William, they exhibited slight signs of unease. I surmised that the discussion was related to their professional obligations. It is possible that William was engaged in a meeting regarding work-related matters at the time of my arrival. The conversation concluded, we partaken of a brief repast, and then spent another exquisite day by the poolside. On Saturday, we dined at an external establishment, and I observed that Lucy was attired in a more elegant ensemble than usual. She appeared resplendent in an exquisite red gown and high heels. After the meal, William requested a few moments of our time. We consented and accompanied him into the office. Accompanied by a security officer, William was seated in a high-backed leather chair, while I was situated on the couch opposite Lucy. I observed that she had positioned herself at a distance from me after a prolonged silence. William then stated, "I have an offer for you. It is of a personal nature. I would appreciate it if you would mark it." Despite my disbelief, I attempted to maintain composure. William continued, "I have greatly enjoyed working with Lucy and getting to know her better over the past few months. We have a strong rapport and have produced a comprehensive report. However, I have an additional proposal." Anticipating my reaction, however, I remained uncertain about his motives. Despite the term relationship, which made me somewhat uneasy, he resumed speaking casually. "Consequently, I proposed that I spend the remainder of the weekend with Lucy. I am willing to compensate for the time she would normally spend with you. To this end, I intend to send $100,000 to your joint account." I could not help but make a joke. "William, it appears that you are." He is somewhat parsimonious. One might recall that Robert Redford outbid the sum of $1 million for Demi Moore. There was no laughter this time. William persisted in his negotiating stance, as he would in any other such encounter. He is willing to negotiate the terms to achieve his desired outcome. Charlotte will be in a disadvantageous position, and he would be grateful if he could keep her company. I looked at Lucy, thinking she would smile, but she seemed concerned. "This is a matter of grave importance." "Mark," she said. William had requested her to accompany him, and I felt the need to approach him, but the guard was already nearby. I was astounded by his prompt reaction. William continued stressing that my wife agreed with the plan, that there was minimal risk, that we would all benefit, and that I would make a substantial profit. I turned to Lucy, who seemed to be the source of the discrepancy in the amount. Perhaps the gap in the price stemmed from Demi Moore's refusal to accept that price. Lucy cringed at the comment but wisely chose to remain silent. I attempted to organize my thoughts. I was preoccupied with my labored breathing. I observed the guard, noting a shift in his expression. He appeared to be paying close attention to my movements, which was understandable given my strong desire to strike William. I inquired about his name, noting that he seemed to have served in the military based on his appearance. "Shane," I asked, "and I prefer not to address this subject. If you were to assault your boss, I am confident I could easily stop you." He answered, "Shane," and I could not help but grin. Perhaps he was just trying to keep me from doing this, I thought. I turned to William and I observed that it was fortunate that he had been brought along, as otherwise I would have severely punished him. William seemed unperturbed, so let us not be hasty. Mark Lucy added that there was a great deal at stake. Mark imagined that in just a few days, money would change our lives forever. I was devastated. She had clearly planned this and wanted it. I asked him, "Darling, have you been contacted with a monetary proposal?" I questioned why they chose this, but received no response, so I stated, "I believe Charlotte was proposed to. The deal is that she is involved with prostitution." William replied that Charlotte is his companion and is affluent and a high-class escort. She simply chooses the task that she prefers. Do not be concerned with her. He stated that he was guaranteed an exclusive encounter, which still indicates that both individuals are involved in prostitution. Lucy flinched but did not say anything to reassure him. He declared that he could take his money and shove it. At that point, Lucy confessed her real intentions, stating that this is her body and that she chose to do so. It is merely a sexual encounter, and we are both capable of sharing it with others. William and I had a mutual attraction, but that was the extent of it. Our feelings for each other remain unchanged. I believe you and Charlotte will enjoy yourselves as well. Her statements astonished me, but they eventually proved to be true. The difference is that I seek no one else, and this goes far deeper than you realize. This is treason and scheming behind my back. I will never trust you again. Lucy responded promptly, "If you're willing to do it once, why not do it again?" She then proceeded to argue that his reaction was disproportionate and that she had already informed him about the situation, making it clear that she was being truthful. She asserted that this would be a one-time occurrence and that she would then fully recommit to him if he reciprocated her feelings. She encouraged him to consider the possibilities that could arise from the money, suggesting that they could use it to take family trips together. She emphasized that they did not require financial assistance and that she was not interested in reconciling with him for monetary gain. You are solely for financial benefit. Honesty only works when both parties agree, but you completely agree with this person. Money is only a pretext. You want this. You mentioned money and Charlotte because you thought I disagreed. Even with the money, I still object. Lucy persisted. You are accurate. I yearn for this. I want to try something new and different. I am drawn to William. However, this should not hurt us. I do not wish to change. Do you think this is an improvement? Have you already made a decision? In consideration of the circumstances, it would be prudent to acquiesce. It is likely that the outcome will be unsatisfactory. To what do you refer? I inquired as to whether you were contesting this decision or seeking a divorce. If you do not accept this, you will lose everything, including your home, children, and job. There is no need for that, so it would be advisable to do so. Everything will be much simpler. I will see you tomorrow. Do not forget that I adore you and that you are my sole focus. I needed to leave. Breathing was becoming more difficult, and if I lingered, I would have been unable to continue. I got up and felt wobbly, so I stumbled towards the door. I heard. Despite Lucy's vocalization of my name, I persisted in my forward trajectory as I traversed the corridor. Charlotte approached and embraced me, offering assurances that everything would be fine. I regarded her with a degree of skepticism, inquiring as to her identity. She responded with a consolatory remark, and subsequently departed with a degree of dignity. I continued onward, ultimately emerging into the open air. I traversed approximately half of the yard before hearing footsteps behind me, which elicited a sense of unease. I was disconcerted to observe the presence of Shane, rather than Lucy. I attempted to convey to Shane that I was eager to comply with his request, but that I needed to ensure that he did not act in a hasty or imprudent manner. For example, do you have any plans because I don't? Shane said, Mark, you appear unwell. Simply lean against the wall, draw your knees up, and take long, steady breaths. Shane recommended this after a while, and I felt better. I believe it was an anxiety or panic episode. I explained that Shane had remarked that I looked pale, but I appeared to have improved while discussing horrible ideas. I asked whether there was a way to leave this island. Shane stated firmly that leaving today was impossible. There were no boats available, and the pilot had suggested that taking the plane on another duty was an option. However, he noted that requesting assistance was not an urgent matter, given that a disloyal spouse is not typically considered an emergency. I am pleased that you view her as unfaithful, as she does not see it that way. I am beginning to wonder what I should do. I asked, and I acknowledge that because of you, I am unable to physically confront him. I am sorry for that. I would prefer to move on, but finding a new job appears unlikely. Shane continued, consider your desired actions and design a strategy. Any action can be postponed until Monday. Shane instructed you to devise a plan and remain silent while keeping your goal secret. The issue is that I am unsure of what to do next. They appear to have everything in order, and I will have to deal with the consequences tomorrow and Monday, while you have a SE. I said, after a deliberate pause. Shane then recommended that a vessel arrive early Monday morning with goods, which you might use if you wish to forego the plane and the crowds, you may do so. You will not be detained, and no charges of kidnapping or detention will be filed against you. I may join you, but this contract is becoming increasingly undesirable. I am reluctant to become involved in unethical circumstances, even if the remuneration is satisfactory. It seems a viable option, but I require time to make it until tomorrow. I suggested a trip around the island tomorrow morning to divert you. Shane proposed considering Charlotte. She is admirable, and it appears you have nothing to lose. I will give it a chance. It is possible that she will reconsider. However, she remained as expected. The next morning, I hurriedly dressed in my sporting gear and headed downstairs, hoping to avoid everyone and get on with my preparations. Unfortunately, when we entered the dining room, there was an awkward silence. I looked for something quick to eat and grabbed some fruit. While overhearing comments, I learned that everything was all right. It was not a significant issue. Then CFO John Cousins approached with his wife, stating that they had all experienced this situation previously and that it was best to simply let it happen. He emphasized that it was not personal and that, while he dated other wives but then moved on, he was quite generous. At that moment, Lizzie and William arrived. She appeared happy and glowing until she saw me, at which point her smile disappeared. She released the man's hand and approached to embrace or kiss me, but I held her at arm's length while surveying the room. I was taken aback by the situation. I was an utter fool. It was evident to all that the outcome was inevitable, even before the weekend had commenced. I departed as Lucy implored me to stay, stating that we could interact with everyone and have another enjoyable day together. I surveyed the scene and observed that every eye was fixed upon me. Some appeared expectant, while others were visibly amused by the situation. However, he had already made the decision and was now attempting to retain your affections. Nevertheless, before I take my leave, I feel compelled to address the group. I believe that this weekend was meticulously planned well in advance, and that you were all aware of this. It is only fair that I would like to take this opportunity to share my thoughts on the recent events. I have learned that all members of the group engaged in a series of clandestine interactions, which I find deeply troubling. Jack and Margaret, I must express my disquiet at your participation in these activities, which I view as reprehensible. Your awareness and tacit endorsement of his actions evoke the image of a warped fan club, a gathering of misguided voices. I hope you can appreciate the discomfort you have caused. It was evident that this was not part of the plan. I had assumed we were on the same page. I had assumed that we were friends and that they were making me feel welcome so that they could arrange everything with a gentle touch. However, I was mistaken. This is a highly personal matter, and I am grateful for your role in wrecking my marriage. The idea that they are willing to put pressure on my children is simply disgusting. I will not allow anyone to intimidate my children. Lucy stated that I was exaggerating. However, I maintain that it was only a brief slip-up, a passing interaction that should not jeopardize our foundation. I have previously expressed my affection. I interjected. This marks the inception of the first defense strategy. Might I inquire as to whether the objective is to diminish the matter? I am fully cognizant of your plan for how to react, given your status as a leader. Therefore, let us examine your proposed course of action. FAA, we will remain in place while you gradually normalize the situation before we return home. You and your associates will engage in discussion and preparation for this eventuality. You presumably expect me to forego my pride, avoid overreacting, and handle the matter maturely. It is evident that the underlying motivation is to bolster my ego and pride. It is clear that this approach will not yield the desired outcome, yet it is an integral component of your strategy to facilitate a more straightforward path forward. Following the weekend, you intend to cede the reins to me, allowing me to spearhead the subsequent phase of the operation. The prospect of engaging in novel activities with your connections could serve to reinforce our bond. It is even plausible that you may seek to foster a sense of affinity with me, given your capacity to tolerate prolonged periods of my unhappiness. Lucy's demeanor betrayed a hint of apprehension, as she glanced at William, suggesting that the remarks had an impact. We will also obtain access to the monies he promised you with the revenues from your side projects, so we can take the children to Disneyland and meet Mickey. These statements elicited clear reactions from the folks visible in their shadows. If the conflict persists, Phase B begins. You said the seed last night. If I genuinely love you, I should allow you to do this. For the past 15 years, you have been an excellent wife. This is only one evening, your actions may begin to diminish my resolve. However, what do I gain after 15 years of devotion to you? If you fail to address my concerns, I will never consent to this plan. It is evident that you are feeling some trepidation. Perhaps you should allow me some time to cool down. In a week or two, you can find me in a pub, drowning my sorrows. Then, you will ask for forgiveness as Phase D. Do you truly regret your actions? You were unaware of the extent of the pain you caused me. Had you known, you would not have done it. Beg and cry for my forgiveness. I must admit, you have a chance, but your actions with him in public, seemingly happy with yourself, indicated no remorse or regret. Only scorn and a desire to shame me. Phase D will not succeed for you. As a result, a contingency plan may be required. Phase D entails the following: you will take all the money, clean the house, and turn the children against me. You have previously suggested that I could lose my job. William will finance the best lawyers for you. I shall die sad, destitute, and isolated. You may even threaten to move in with him and live happily ever after with our children. William raised his head so abruptly that I almost laughed. It is evident that your partner is not particularly interested in your children. Lucy finally found her voice. However, that is not the issue. She suggested that we take a moment to calm down and reflect. She mentioned that we had previously gone through a similar phase with Lucy. I replied that we should save time and proceed directly to the final outcome. I had considered this possibility last night and believed that it would be better for everyone, including the children, if we separated. It is healthier than remaining in a dissatisfied household. Finally, I cannot be joyful while dealing with these challenges, and I am not satisfied either. You might try to keep me from I am capable of parenting my children, and I believe that is what is best for them. They are mature enough to comprehend the situation. I doubt that your relatives and acquaintances will support you, especially if they learn what you did. Financial matters do not concern me, it has always been about you. Everyone sat in startled silence, eyes as wide as goldfish. Do you have any other advice? Did I overlook anything? No, I do not think so. Just one more thing, Jack, you can shove your job. I will see you in court for unfair termination. My employment status is contingent upon maintaining a marital relationship. It would appear that this is the sole reason for my departure. You could have heard a pin drop. Shane followed me as usual, chuckling. Well done. It would seem that you have followed the advice to refrain from disclosing this information. I could not help but smile. It would appear that I have failed to preserve this idea. Shane laughed as we left the building. It is beneficial that you have remained a civilian. You would have been unsuccessful in the military. He had never succeeded in the army. Let us proceed, Shane. He retrieved his backpack and we commenced our journey at a moderate pace along the coastline. After a mile, I found myself struggling to keep up with him and began to question the wisdom of this undertaking. I heard him say something from his brain about how physical activity is a great way to distract from mental anguish, and my hurting muscles and lungs seemed to agree. The view was breathtaking, and Shane was excellent company. He changed from inquiring about me to. We engaged in discourse on the subject of his experiences in the British Army, and subsequently spent several hours traversing the northern coastline of the island. As we approached a high point in the center, I was experiencing respiratory distress, and Shane suggested that we return to our respective occupations, as the situation was becoming increasingly unfavorable. I was unable to maintain the pace he set, but I suspected he was intentionally slowing down, either to encourage me or to taunt me, depending on one's perspective. We returned at lunchtime, and I was noticeably out of breath and fatigued. I informed Shane that, up until that point, I had believed that he was fit, yet barely out of breath. He graciously mentioned that I was very fit. Given that he was a physical fitness instructor in the army, I was not particularly distressed. I staggered into my room. Lucy was not present, and I wondered if my wife was making extra money after washing. I was quite hungry and went to the dining room for supper. However, I was unhappy to see William and Lucy there. Shane was also present, hanging out in the background. He appeared as fresh as ever. William, fully attired in a suit, commenced discourse in a manner characteristic of his late assurance. He proffered an apology, stating that he had never previously encountered such difficulties in his relationships and expressing a desire to avoid jeopardizing the stability of your marriage. However, he asserted that the situation was already irremediable. I informed him that I was unwilling to spend the evening with his wife and that I sought an increase in remuneration. In response, William provided me with a document, which I opened to find a check for $25,000. I found myself unable to avert my gaze from Lucy, who appeared to be in a state of distress. You must have possessed considerable skill to earn that much. Lucy's eyes betrayed a fierce intensity, indicating that this was not the core issue. We had made a grave misstep in our endeavor to rectify it. William exemplified the qualities of a true gentleman, demonstrating genuine concern for how one responded. I challenged his assertion, inquiring about the attributes he sought in an ideal gentleman. Did he express gratitude after engaging in sexual intercourse with her? It was unnecessary to express gratitude after engaging in sexual intercourse with her. This was simply an error in judgment on her part. We miscalculated how you would react to the situation. It was a unique experience for both of us. You should commend Lucy for making the sacrifices necessary to provide a better life for you and your children. This was not simply a mistake. I informed him of my opinion of his plan, but he proceeded regardless. You could have stopped it at any time, yet you only stopped after you achieved your goal. You also orchestrated this, thus I shredded the I have saved you from being tricked. However, there is still the issue of betrayal, which I am unsure I can resolve. Lucy immediately burst into tears when I confronted the men, asking why they were behaving in this manner. It was clear that they were seeking control or experiencing a thrill at stealing someone else's spouse. In any case, your actions portray you as a genuinely pathetic person. I ask, at what age are you? You are 48 years old, yet you behave like a child, grabbing toys simply because you can. Do you have any other pressing matters to attend to? William inquired, his tone laced with mirth. I oversee the operations of a multinational enterprise and contribute millions to philanthropic endeavors. I have several crucial matters to address, based on my findings from last night. It has come to my attention that you are the heir to this company, and under your stewardship, its fortunes have waned. Dallas nonprofit organizations must confront challenges through fundraising events and social gatherings. When was the last time you engaged directly with these challenges? Have you rolled up your sleeves and genuinely helped someone in need? I am skeptical that you possess the capacity to do so. You are excessively self-absorbed and preoccupied with. You appear to enjoy controlling the lives of others. Based on your intentions for this weekend, I am sorry to inform you that your curiosity extends beyond just Lucy. He is interested in every board member's wife, so you are not alone. Why not, William, attempt to mature, form a genuine relationship with someone, utilize part of your fortune for a good cause, and stop being completely irresponsible? For the first time, I noticed him stumble in his remarks and appear confused. I informed Shane that he should dispose of that. I then proceeded to dispose of the detritus. Shane, however, was not so easily dissuaded. He smirked slightly before informing his friends that it was time for them to depart, citing the potential dangers that might arise. Once they had left, I procured a snack and made my way to the beach. I attempted to avoid other individuals, seeking solitude. However, I was soon confronted with Charlotte, reclining on a hammock and engrossed in a book. She exuded a striking beauty when she smiled. I approached her and apologized for my actions the previous night. Before I could finish, however, she cut me off, stating, "It's fine if I knew you." Had I declined the offer, I would not have recommended it. Your response is very understandable, and your breakfast address was amazing. I agreed entirely when I departed. Lucy burst into tears, and I have never seen William this humiliated. In every moment, I am sorry. I should not have said that, given your situation. I responded, "Thank you. I am honestly relieved that things are starting to make sense. I am exhausted from hearing that it's all you see. William has no idea how to handle you. He's never been. Has he previously offered you extra money?" "Yes, just before a quar. I advised him not to, but he is accustomed to paying his own way until he achieves his goals. He will pay for this in both business and personal terms." Charlotte was easy to talk to and she listened carefully as I detailed my marriage and children. She was clearly clever and well-educated, expressing amazement that Lucy would act this way in what appeared to be a happy marriage. I considered the possibility that there may have been some underlying discontent or an open marriage agreement between us. However, I quickly dismissed this notion. It seems that Charlotte is simply caught up in an unexpected captivity. She appears completely charmed by this man. He has an undeniable impact on women, which is quite charming. However, the substance of the situation lacks a certain depth. If you understand what I mean, we talked more and I felt better. I believe that you actually adore her. Your reactions to the proposals and at breakfast must have been heartbreaking," she said. I shrugged. I apologize for part, which was somewhat enigmatic. Taking this into account, I must conclude that you are not at fault. I simply require the ability to endure one additional night. Then, I may be able to escape. She smiled once more, which proved to be highly distracting. Everyone was astonished when I arrived for dinner. Lucy was no longer seated beside William. However, the evening proceeded as usual, and I ignored Lucy's attempts at small talk. She inquired if I wished to retire early. I smiled and replied that I had other plans. She appeared ashamed, particularly as Charlotte embraced me as soon as I awoke. We subsequently departed. We proceeded to the cabins by the shore, with the initial objective of departing together and demonstrating to Lucy the impact of our actions. The embrace with Charlotte provided a sense of solace, alleviating some of our previous disappointments. I contemplated adhering to my ethical principles and moral compass. However, after spending time with Charlotte, I came to the conclusion that Lucy might have preferred a more open-minded perspective on my part. Lucy had already violated the sanctity of our marital vows. The evening with Charlotte was nothing short of exceptional. Her appearance was striking, and her movements were deliberate and flawlessly executed. She was a true expert in her field. I was surprised to find myself thinking about Lucy and experiencing no guilt. Lucy's traumatic recollection of William was quickly overshadowed by the joy of the moment. I enjoyed a pleasant boat taxi ride to the airport, followed by the usual flight back home. I gathered the children and planned the weekend as best I could. I fabricated a story about a disagreement with their mother. I informed them that we would resolve the issue when Lucy arrived with our large suitcase. I suggested that we have dinner, and the children ran upstairs to greet their mother. Lucy smiled and agreed that dinner seemed like an excellent idea. She requested a few minutes to prepare, but I stated that I would rather go alone with them because she had previously proposed this when I met William. I immediately felt a connection with him. He appeared engaging and muscular, like a character from a vintage film. However, his temperament changed when Mark was present. We flirted and had dinners together were a thrilling experience, yet I was compelled to resist the temptation to be unfaithful. I confided in him, and William advocated open relationships, prompting me to consider Mark's potential acceptance of this suggestion. I argued that the financial aspect justified it, and Jack concurred, leading to the planning of a weekend getaway. The weekend commenced on a positive note, and I genuinely enjoyed my time with Mark, who initially seemed reluctant to embrace the idea. William reassured me that everything would be okay and advised me to relax. Both he and Jack anticipated Mark's initial rejection but expected him to eventually reconsider. Mark's reaction was more favorable than anticipated, prompting the planning of a significant surprise. The most surprising occurrence was when he became visibly unwell. I was inclined to pursue him, but William advised me that everything would be fine. He requested that Charlotte meet him, and when he did not return, I assumed he remained with her. After months of anticipation, I was eager to spend time with William. As soon as he kissed me, I realized that success was near. He guided me to his bedroom and, before I could undress, the atmosphere was charged with excitement. William disrobed me as if I were a prized possession, despite his advanced age. He was remarkably fit, and I was not disappointed by his physique or his virility when I reached for him. William drew back and began kissing my entire body in a slow, deliberate manner, carefully gauging and responding to my reactions. He was perfectly attuned to my desires. My initial pique arrived swiftly, induced by his adept touches. He stood and kissed me fervently, demonstrating his expertise. I was overwhelmed by the sensations enveloping me. My body was now wholly devoted to my desire. He intensified his actions and engaged me with great passion as another peak approached. William matched my intensity, and eventually, we both settled into a serene embrace. I awoke in the middle of the night, disoriented, believing I was with Mark. I was shocked to find another person beside me. My guilt emerged as I wondered about Mark's whereabouts and his well-being. My disturbance seemed to awaken William, who kissed me, and any lingering guilt dissipated as he embraced me. Once more this morning, as I was brushing my teeth, William approached from behind. He seemed insatiable. We returned to the bed and clasped hands. Then I pushed him onto his back and positioned myself on top. I was pleased to observe his face lit up with desire and joy, echoing our significant moment. It was exactly as I desired, and I was truly content. I kissed William and expressed my gratitude for the splendid evening. It felt appropriate to hold his hand as we descended to the dining room. Anticipating another evening, I was disconcerted to observe Mark's demeanor shift. His sudden anger and the subsequent disruption of the evening's events left me with a sense of unease. Despite his apparent disinterest in Charlotte, I had assumed he would eventually depart. However, I was unprepared for the intensity of his reaction. Mark's rationality was striking. He was able to anticipate and effectively counter my arguments, even when presented with William's support. Mark's arguments were considerably more compelling, and he was able to dismantle my own arguments in a remarkably short time. Even I, who had initially been confident in my stance, came to realize that I was losing ground. After he left, I was so distressed that I collapsed and began to sob uncontrollably. William seemed uncertain for the first time. When I was able to regain my composure, I attempted to locate him but was unsuccessful. Jack and William then suggested that we halt our plans by offering more money. When we proposed additional money to Mark later that day, I was astonished by the outcome. William's influence had diminished significantly. His authority had been undermined to such an extent that he appeared insignificant. Previously, I had believed his every word, but now I was no longer so inclined to do so. He had assured me that we could enjoy ourselves without endangering my marriage, but this scheme fell to pieces. As a result, I doubted everything. I then succumbed to a senseless fury, assuming I would remain on the island longer and enjoy myself. However, I was taken aback by Jack's composed yet harsh reply. He advised me not to be so utterly foolish. If one wishes to salvage one's marriage, even slightly, it is imperative to seek forgiveness and ensure that one's words are truthful and sincere. It is evident that he is not inclined to reconsider his position. I was even more astonished when Jack informed William that they could never replicate their previous experiences. He then proceeded to state that Mark was a decent man who did not deserve the nonsense that we caused and advised William to consider maturing. I was surprised that Mark attended. During the evening meal, I attempted to speak with him, but he simply dismissed me when he departed with Charlotte. I was deeply disappointed. I considered chasing after him, but I was unsure of what I could say since I had essentially prompted him to act this way and had spent most of the trip rationalizing inconsequential sexual encounters. I was extremely upset and distressed. Then I recalled that I had engaged in similar actions with Mark previously. However, what exacerbated the situation was that it had all been prearranged and known by everyone. I was deserving of such treatment, perhaps, in some manner. Perhaps if we both strayed, it might help our relationship endure the flight home without Mark. He had found a way to leave the island ahead of us. Afterward, I hardly conversed with him. I began to feel deeply guilty about my actions. I tried to concentrate on the money, who would decline such an amount? I couldn't stop weeping and felt as if I were losing control. Jack and Margaret were concerned about me when upon returning home, Mark was present, yet he declined my invitation to dine with him and the children. I was able to maintain my composure until their departure. However, when they left, I became overwhelmed with emotion and was barred from the meal. This seemed to foreshadow the challenges that lay ahead in my life. When I regained my composure, I attempted to formulate a response upon Mark's return. However, my words seemed inadequate and lacked the depth of expression that I desired. I was too embarrassed to seek guidance from my mother or friends. Mark and I finally arrived home. The children proceeded directly to their rooms, as is their custom, immersing themselves in video games and smartphones. I paused and observed Lucy in the kitchen. She appeared utterly alien to me. She almost murmured, "Can we talk? I mean, really talk?" I shrugged, thinking that we needed to resolve this issue eventually, so why prolong it? "I'm sorry, Mark. I assure you, it was just once, and I will be as devoted as before. The weekend, I did it for the money. It could transform our lives as a family. I did it. For us, you did it for yourself. We were fine, and money was not an issue. You couldn't wait to engage in sexual intercourse with him. You must have been in for an extravagant meal and intimacy. Overall, everyone had a good time. You are overreacting. This incident should not be taken personally. You really should skip this phase. Lucy, you know this. This was not casual intimacy. It was a calculated betrayal. It was arrogant and selfish. These are the qualities that I despise. Now, I despise you very much. I reciprocated your actions, though I did not engage in the same behavior. I responded in kind because your actions did not elicit a response from you. You were too self-absorbed to realize how your actions wounded me. I would not have considered such an action if I had a faithful wife. I hope your actions cause you pain so you can comprehend my feelings. However, I did not scheme at all, unlike you. I made myself look foolish, by the way. How long did you plan this? Was it your first time with him? Her eyes widened at this, but then she realized it was a legitimate inquiry. It was the first time we had dinner, and I could tell he was attracted to me. I believe Jack and Margaret were gauging my interest, asking if I was interested. The four of us were dining, and for the first time in my marriage, I was attracted to another man. His confidence was captivating. I knew it was wrong and fought it with all my strength, managing not to engage in an affair. Then William suggested that the notion of opening our relationship and your opinion on the potential change was briefly discussed that evening. However, it was evident that you would not be amenable to it at that time. Subsequently, he proposed this arrangement, and I assumed that the financial compensation would be a sufficient incentive for you, given that the trip was fast approaching. He suggested that we extend an invitation to Charlotte to ensure your approval. I was initially reluctant to this suggestion, but by that point, I was eager for the plan to materialize. I believed that even if you did not fully endorse it, we would eventually reconcile. However, you were unequivocal in your disapproval. The series of events that transpired at breakfast led me to recognize the potential consequences of my actions. Was it worth it? In hindsight, the answer is clearly no. I was so infatuated with him and gave undue weight to his words. I never intended to cause you pain. However, the subsequent events were a series of phases, each one unintentionally painful. You were enjoying this, evident from your demeanor during breakfast. Now, you're merely telling me what I want to hear. The honest answer is yes, I did enjoy it. He was competent, and it is not superior or preferable, it is simply different. It was an engaging novel, and I was captivated by it. He is highly skilled and knowledgeable, but this was the only time. Please do not leave us and dissolve our family because of a singular incident. I found myself grinning, Riley. It is ironic, but that is precisely how I would characterize what you have already done. You have ruined our family because of a one-off act. It is all on you. I concede that I am culpable. I am remorseful and ask for your forgiveness. I love you with all my heart. However, I must clarify that I did not love you with my entire heart, as a portion of it was devoted to him. Despite your assertion that your love for him was insignificant, I believe it was sufficient to influence my fidelity. I am uncertain how I can trust you again. I was previously trusting because I did not anticipate your actions. I find it challenging to even look at you. At this juncture, it is imperative to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. Lucy exhibited a profound sense of shock and disbelief. It is imperative to clarify that any assertion of continued love is implausible in light of the circumstances. It is evident that your primary concern was your own well-being, and that the needs of your partner and children were not a priority. It is crucial to recognize that the intensity of emotions in this situation may not be fully comprehensible to those who have not experienced similar circumstances. It is understandable that you sought to defend your position and prioritize your own perspective during the heated exchange. However, it is essential to acknowledge that attempting to disregard the past and maintain the appearance of a united front may not be a sustainable solution. The trust and love that we once shared have been irreparably damaged. We placed the well-being of our children and our own relationship above all else. We did not intend to cause harm to anyone else. Mark, I love you, and I made a mistake. I will do everything in my power to rectify it. However, that does not mean that we should divorce simply because you desire it. You have caused me immense pain and threatened my sense of security. You do not treat someone you truly love in this way. Lucy remained silent, shocked and unsure of what else to say. We need to discuss the children. In terms of the children, it is my view that they are better off in separate households than in an environment characterized by dysfunction. From this perspective, divorce appears to be the optimal solution. I acknowledge that you may be able to secure custody, but I must reserve the right to see my children. This will also be beneficial for you. You have expressed difficulties in establishing limits. I regarded this as ironic, given that they are already challenging you. It will be better for you and for them if I remain involved in their lives. Lucy, in a dismissive manner, do not impede my access to our children. Do not alienate me. I am not a malevolent individual. I care for them profoundly and love them unconditionally. You have yet to witness the full extent of my wrath. I will pursue this matter to its conclusion. Should we exhaust our financial resources on legal proceedings, we may both suffer irreparable harm. I advised her, and she concurred. You are an exemplary father, and they require your guidance. They will look to you for continued guidance and support. In various sports, she said. I turned and looked at her, surprised by her initial comment, which seemed genuine and not an attempt to manipulate or justify her actions. Be careful, Lucy. You're getting off track. Even though you know who I am, why do this? I can only assume that deep down, you wanted us to separate. God never intended for us to be together. Did you not intervene that night and simply depart? I felt as though I were being suffocated and was compelled to remove myself from the situation. After that, it ceased to matter, given that your desire for another man at any cost meant that I had already lost you. This discussion came to a close long before you initiated sexual relations with him. Perhaps it was over when you began planning it all. You spent weeks speaking with him and preparing, and allowing me to leave without interference. This made it easier for you to conclude things. There is no turning back, and that marked the beginning of the end. Our marriage was compromised in less than 4 days. Fortunately, we divorced without the necessity of counseling. It seems that Lucy was reluctant to justify her actions. This is regrettable. It would have been beneficial for someone qualified to demonstrate the inaccuracy of her statements. However, she did fulfill one promise: she spent approximately equal time with the children. She even admitted to them that she was at fault without providing further details. The children were mature enough to understand and often chose where to stay. The age at which parents become akin to taxi drivers and money lenders is a controversial topic. While I am partial to this view, I believe that the children in question were admirable and managed the divorce well. Lucy had the option of keeping the house until the children were grown and then selling or keeping it. However, I still believed this was in the children's best interest, allowing them to remain in the same school. Fortunately, this decision proved profitable by the time the children reached college age, as real estate values had increased significantly. Lucy was therefore required to purchase my share. My portion of the assets proved to be the most advantageous investment of my lifetime. How could she afford this? We maintained the value of the assets at $250,000 and divided them during the divorce proceedings. Similarly to the situation with Charlotte, I was unable to adhere to the moral high ground. I am a practical person, and in this case, the decision seemed relatively minor in comparison to the significant losses incurred in my marriage and the disruption to my former lifestyle. I resigned from my position and obtained a loan to start my own business. I used the money to circumvent potential difficulties and launched my own web design company. Lucy attempted to reconcile with Sile, but I was not interested, so I was forced to consider whether it was appropriate to end things. The situation was complex, and no party emerged as a clear winner. However, the worst-case scenarios I had envisioned did not materialize. I was determined not to overlook or pardon what transpired that night. It is essential to be able to reflect on your actions and appreciate who you have become. The second-story wife is still in communication with her former partner. I am uncertain as to the appropriate course of action in this situation. My wife, aged 35, has been in sporadic communication with her former partner for approximately 7 years. We have 3 children, with the eldest being 7 years old. During her pregnancy with our first child, her former partner contacted her and stated that he was still deeply in love with her. She informed me of this at the time, and I instructed her to cease all communication with him. However, I recently had cause to suspect that she was still in contact with him and checked her phone, only to discover that she had been chatting with him for the past 7 years. Despite my prohibition against communication, I believe that they have not engaged in sexual intercourse. However, their text messages were notably flirtatious. She has repeatedly stated her enduring affection for him, citing him as her first genuine love. Additionally, the messages included disparaging remarks about me. Her former partner is an accomplished athlete, approximately 6 feet 2 inches tall. She informed me that he made comments about my height in the messages. I am only 5 feet 10 inches. She reacted with amusement. I was subjected to a series of deceptive actions. Initially, I was demoted from a rank of 600 to 5. Additionally, she sought his counsel on athletic matters pertaining to our son. In response, he stated, "Too bad his dad isn't an athletic hero like me." She then laughed and suggested that he could have been a hero if he hadn't let another woman break up with my wife. These instances, though few in number, have caused me significant distress. She has been deceiving me about maintaining contact with him and how she was essentially demeaning me to her ex-partner. I am struggling with this situation, as it has made me feel incredibly self-conscious. I have come to realize that she regards me as a less athletic individual. I initially confronted her, and she initially appeared distressed and said that I was not meant to see those conversations. She has since apologized and vowed to never communicate with him again. In the context of marriage, she sent him a text message in my presence, stating that I had seen the messages and that they should never communicate again. However, I am unable to cease ruminating on how she belittled me to her former partner. I am grateful for the opportunity to recount today's narrative. If you found this article engaging, I kindly request that you express your appreciation by liking and subscribing. If you have a story to share regarding your own experiences or those of others, I encourage you to contact me. I wish you well.